Sorry, now the time is over, and we will go on to our next presentation. Barbara Kadel-Piakowska, sorry for my pronunciation. You come from Poland, and we welcome you. You just said it was very freezing in Poland, it's snowy, but we're very happy to welcome you. Could you please present yourself very quickly?
Hello.
And you have the floor for exactly 20 minutes. I'm very eager on that, so we can have 10 minutes more to ask you questions.
Yeah.
Barbara, up to you. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. So hi again. Thanks for having me here as a speaker for the second time already. And it's a pleasure to have the possibility to start this wonderful conference just after the students' presentations. So today I would want to talk about just a bit about the readability metrics and try to answer the question if it's useful for technical communication or not really. I'm Barbara Kardel-Piątkowska. I'm a documentation specialist at Etaplan, Poland. I'm also an information science and linguistics graduate. And I'm also a technical communication practitioner. So I'm going to talk about what is readability, how can you measure it, and try to answer the question if these methods are useful for technical communication. And I'm just going to scrape the surface and maybe open the discussion. So what is readability? Cambridge Dictionary gives us the definition that is the quality of being easy and enjoyable to read. So in other words, it can mean the ease in which the reader can read and maybe enjoy the text. And it does not necessarily mean the reader does understand the text, but in other definitions, it is also taken in account, like the comprehension of the text is also taken into account. It has been the focus on researchers since 1880s. When Professor Sherman found out that the sentences in written text are getting shorter through time. So in Elizabethan times, around 16th, 17th century, it was 50 words in average per sentence, while in late 19th century, it was around 23 words. The early research also included the work of Harry D. Kitson, who published the book, The Mind of the Buyer, which is groundbreaking. It was talking about the way the buyers think. So it was a marketing book, really. And there he used the word syllable counts and sentence length in a study of magazine articles readership patterns. And Rudolf Flesch would rely on this work when helping to create the readability formula, the mostly known as the Flesch reading ease. So what is the readability metrics? It's the measure, it measures the level of readability of a text. So measures how easy it is to read a text. And I think all of us involved in technical communication have at least a basic understanding of what these formulas are. We can divide these formulas into 4 basic categories based on the methods of counting they use. So we have the syllable counting formulas and the character counting formulas, and they base on the number of syllables and words and number of sentences in a text. And there are some readability formulas that use analysis of word frequency. That is how common a word is in the corpus. And it's combined with the average sentence length to determine the readability. Some formulas use analysis of syntactical structures to determine the text readability level. And one recent formula, the ETS text evaluator, can be described as a discourse-based formula, where the initial step in the assessment of the readability level is the genre determination, and it helps to target the readability testing, so the tests that follow are different for different genres. So, for example, a marketing copy has different modificators from a children's short story. So let's run through the most common readability formulas. The flash reading is it's developed by Rudolf Flesch in the 1940s, and it computes the readability based on the average number of syllables per word and the average number of words per sentence with some modificators. And it produces a score between 0 and 100. So the higher the grade, the easier the text is, and the score between 60 and 70 is considered the most acceptable, so readable. There is also a formula developed based on the reading ease, developed by the US Navy, and it presents a score as a US grade level. So it makes it easier to assess the readability. And it's quite similar, but it gives more emphasis on sentence length over word length. So, for example, the score 8 means that the text is readable for an 8th grader. The next is the Fog index, developed by Robert Gunning. So it also presents a score as the US grade level, but it's a bit easier. It counts the average sentence length and percentage of hard words, where hard words are those with 3 or more syllables. And it does not include proper nouns, familiar jargon, or compound words, but it also does not include common suffixes like es, ed, or ing. And it is a good index, a good sign of hard to read text, but it also has limits. For example, interesting is not generally thought as a difficult word, but has 3 syllables, even after we omit the common ing suffix. So, and a short word can also be difficult if it's not used very often. There is also a Linsar-Wright formula. It's also similar to the ones I was talking about. What is interesting that it started the plain language movement, and it was used by the United States Air Force to calculate the readability of their technical manuals. So it might be useful, maybe, for technical communication. There is also the SMOG readability formula, which is still considered a golden standard in medical texts. And what is interesting about this formula is that the creator, Harry McLaughlin, used the 100% correct score criterion, whereas most formulas test for around 50 and 75 comprehension ratio. What is it about? So basically, they gave a text to some group of people, and after they read the text, they gave a test, and they considered it readable when 50% of the group answered 50% of the questions correctly. So it's not really very accurate. There is also an automated readability index, which is interesting because when you think back, all the formulas were computed by hand manually. So this was a groundbreaking thing to do it in an automated manner. So it was developed by the military to use in Air Force. And it was real-time monitoring of readability on electric typewriters. So the typewriters had a device that was counting each time a button was pressed. So a space was considered a new word and a dot was considered a new sentence. And the higher score, the more years of education is necessary to understand the text. But we also have different formulas. Here I'll show you a syntax-based one. As you can see, it requires knowledge, an in-depth grammatical knowledge to be able to calculate it. So you take a sample of several hundred words from the text, and the number of words is in the sample is counted. And also you count the number of T-units. And what is a T-unit? It's defined as an independent clause or any dependent clauses attached to it. And other syntactical units are then counted and entered into the table, the one we see on the screen. And each word count is weighted and the results is added together, and the sum is then divided by the total number of T-units. So then the final score is compared with the grade level in the table that we see below. As we can see, it's quite complicated. And it's not that easy to use. And remember, it was computed by hand manually. And it's still used today. Most of the language checkers like Grammarly or Acrolinx usually use the readability formulas to give us scores. And I also ran some tests to show you how it works. So here are the two texts I tested. It's taken from a blog about fasteners, very fascinating. The first one is the text that was published, and the second one is a text that was slightly edited. The first one is 208 words. The second one is 170. And the second one has slightly shortened sentences, and some synonyms for longer words were used. And here you can see the scores. So we can see the Flesh Reading Ease score and the Gunnig-Fog index are similar. Whereas the Flesh-Kincaid grade level index and ARI and Linstar formula are different. So the factor that had the most impact on this score was the length of the sentences and the use of shorter words, of course. And it's less syllables for the Flesh-Kincaid and less characters for the ARI formula. And what is interesting, I also added one word mechanically, and the score went one grade up for most of the formulas. So it has such great impact, just one word. So you can see it can be deceived a bit. So let's have a look at technical communication as a genre so that we can see the potential problems with these readability formulas. So basically the subject matter of technical communication is specialized and difficult. And the users are motivated to accomplish some tasks and solve some problems, not only to acquire some information. And the same information may be consumed by users with a wide variety of unpredictable characteristics and needs. So they can be well educated and not really educated. You cannot really tell. Many technical documents are created collaboratively. So or maybe some texts are assembled from pre-existing documents. Technical communicators often are not the experts in the subjects they are writing about. So they are linguists, for example, and write about very complex engineering ideas. The text creators and users often do not share the same expertise. So, for example, the knowledge of language is different. Technical communication often depends on complex information technologies for construction and dissemination. So the XML editors we were talking about, for example. And much technical communication is high stakes, involves matters of risk or safety. So it's really essential for the users to understand what we are writing about. So there are some potential problems in the use of readability metrics for technical communication. The potential audience of technical communication is wide and diverse. So we write for end users, but also for developers, for engineers, for service personnel, and they have different level of knowledge. And also the subjects that are communicated are often very complex. And while readability is very important for technical communication, it is not a dominant one. Equally important are, for example, usability of the manuals we are creating, the content structure and the organization of information in those manuals, or the visual presentation of the content, for example, bullet points, tables, whatever you think of. And also, the methodology of result assessment while creating some of the formulas was questionable, as I said about the comprehension ratio. So we don't want the 50% of our audience to perform 50% of the tasks in the correct way. Also, writers tend to rewrite the content for the sake of getting a better readability score, and therefore lose some sense of the original text. And when you examine the same text with two different formulas, you can get widely different scores, as I shown in the example. So there is also an AI approach for that. And unlike the traditional readability formulas, the artificial intelligence approaches to readability assessment, also known as automatic readability assessment, incorporate myriad linguistic features and construct statistical prediction models to predict text readability. And these approaches typically consist of 3 steps. So the first is a training corpus of individual texts. The second one is a set of linguistic features to be computed from each text, and also it requires a machine learning model to predict the readability using the computed linguistic feature values. So in other words, with a good corpus of technical texts, well-defined linguistic features that affect the comprehension of technical texts, we would get fairly reliable scores. So to conclude, readability metrics can be useful and a useful aid to identify a text if a text will be too complex for our target audience. However, the most popular ones only check certain aspects of the text, like word length or sentence length, so therefore provide just an average result. And some indexes are better suited to check certain factors. For example, writers who would like to check the complexity of vocabulary should rather use the word frequency formulas instead of those syllable-based formulas. Getting a better score in readability metrics should never be the primary goal of technical communicator. And also a good AI model for technical communication would be very welcome. So it's a message to all those who are dealing with AI. And to sum up the golden rules of readability, you will never do anything wrong when you follow these. So use short, simple, familiar words, avoid jargon, use culture and gender neutral language, use correct grammar, punctuation, and spelling. Use simple sentences, active voice, and present tense. Begin instructions in imperative mode by starting sentences with action verbs, and use simple graphic elements such as bullet lists, numbered steps to make information visually accessible. So here are the resources I recommend. I will maybe post them later, and questions. So it's 20 minutes.
It's perfect, Barbara.
I did
have
it.
nothing to do. Yes, you edited very well. Thank you very much, Barbara, for this very interesting subject that has been going on and on for ages.
Yes,
So we have.
it
Thank
opens
you.
a discussion for an AI model for technical communication.
Exactly, exactly. So we have some questions in the blog. We have are the studies carried out on English or UK English, US English or UK English?
Actually, I didn't check the metrics I used, if they are used only for English, like American English or British English. I used American English.
Okay, thank you very much. Another, not a question, but another way of saying things from André Tran, which is antidote with the E at the end, calculates readability metrics for French.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Xavier Bordery also said that hemingwayapp.com also measures a readability score.
Question about other languages as well, for
Exactly.
German.
Yes, so other languages have different formulas, obviously. So I only focused on English, but if you have any formulas that are for different languages, just go ahead and share. I write in English, so that's why I focused on English.
Marie, would you like to add a question or a remark?
Well, in the same way that we had questions about accessibility checkers for within technical communication software, I wonder what sort of tools are integrated into editing tools for checking readability, or even simplifying text.
As far as I know, the Flesh-Kincaid formula is available in Word.
Yeah.
So it's the most popular one, and I think it's used throughout every language checker, to be honest.
Yeah, and as Yvette says, there's Acrolinks as well that
yes,
does the checking. Yeah.
So also there are some variants of these formulas for different languages. I know that there is a variant for Polish language as well. So the modificators are a bit different.
So Fanny asked if it's correct to say that your recommendation means that having a good style guide and checking content against these rules manually and automatically is much better using readability formulas.
Much better than using.
Okay.
Actually, it kind of connects with each other. So a good style would produce a good score for readability. And you don't need to check the readability with these formulas when you have a good style to be sure it's readable.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Danielle also said that Acrolinks does okay for English too, and for German, and Yvette added that for German too.
Yes, so
Okay.
these basically are the syllable or character based formulas that are used in these tools mostly.
Okay. Some other questions or reactions? No?
So if you want to contact me, here's my email address, and I welcome any feedback.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Barbara, for being here
you.
today with us. And it was a great pleasure to welcome you from Poland. And we are more than happy that you made it and you came remotely, of course. And it was a very interesting subject, a very old subject also about
Yes,
readability,
yes.
because we've been talking about readability for at
Like
least
100 years.
yes, exactly, exactly. And also what you can understand is not only on words, and I was a former translator, so I can really think of that very, very hardly, because what you understand is in your brain and not only on words. So
Yes, exactly.
so this is very interesting. I mean, maybe as you said, IA could do some kind of a job on that, and that could be interesting to look. So
Yes,
new.
so the first step would be create a corpus with technical communication texts and describe it in a in-depth way so that we can achieve some better results.
Okay, this is a PhD subject.
Yes, definitely.
So thank you very much. There's François Violette who made also a remark. It's hard and interesting topic. Thanks, Barbara. Implementing a style guide in a Docker's code toolchain. We don't surface sentence length wearings too much. It's also about linking to the style guide and explaining writers that's to be improved. Thank you, François, for your thoughts. And I know you're particularly interested in Docker's code also. So thank you very much. Could you unshare your document, please?
I'll just try to do that. Okay, here it is, I think.
You just have to close your document now. Thank you very much. Of course, we will be very interested by your PowerPoint. So please consider the fact that you send it to me this morning.
Yes.
I think. Thank you very much. So we'll take